The hole was stone and filtered light, meant to calm. It failed on the creature at the far end. The Chyr'alk overseer sat in a cradle of jointed limbs, carapace black as oil, eyes unreadable. Dr. Mara Kessler took the human seat, set her slate down, and kept her hands still. "You asked for audience," she said. "State your terms." Varith Ka's mandibles clicked. "Your species maintains a capability we lack, chosen kin. Unrelated units binding under stress without command. We require the mechanism. You will provide it." "Empathy isn't a protocol," Mara said. "It's lived. We induce the chemicals you pair with bonding. Prisoners display partial effects. Inconsistent." The word prisoners snagged. She kept her voice even. "Release them, and you'll see better results. They will be released after acquisition." A limb tacked a glyph. The wall became space, Asterion Prime ringed by red points. "Our patience is finite." The colony council watched from the gallery, farmers, engineers, 2 marines. She leaned in. "Tell me what you think you're buying." "Volitional alignment," Varith Ka said. "Resilience when nodes fail. Reconfiguration of obligation networks. You call it family, you apply it to strangers. We will replicate. You want soldiers who choose each other. We want units that do not fragment." Mara's slate buzzed. She didn't look. "You try to code this." We extracted sequences from endocrine signatures and cortical sweeps. Some units bond parasitically. Others fixate on inefficient protectees. We require parameters, not poetry. You think there's a blueprint you can paste in. We require the mechanism. We will adapt it. She let silence stretch. The mechanism is story. Clarify. People become kin by shared meaning as much as chemicals. We build rituals out of hunger and loss. We keep promises when no one is watching. She tipped her head toward the glass. He trusts her with the reactor. She trusts him with her child's con. No writ made that. Stories are containers for signals, Varith Ka said. We can encode signals. You'll get puppets, not people. The overseer's vent plates lifted. Provide an initialization sequence, reproducible stimuli at platoon scale. And if I refuse? The red points brightened into angled silhouettes. Warships. Then we reduce your surface ecology until cooperation increases. Your species protects biospheres with pathological intensity. You think Terra trains love on command. We have sufficient models. Mara pictured terraces outside the city, wheat coaxed from thin soil, old Rohit waving at drones. You're not wrong about the outcome you're chasing, she said. Chosen kin keeps ships from breaking. But it can't be forced. Choice is the hinge. Your prisoners chose to bond under scarcity. We reproduced scarcity. They bonded unpredictably. Because they saw persons, not functions. You speak of personhood as if it were not an epiphenomenon. It's conferred. She glanced at her slate. Orbital scans, unknown tonnage, a heat bloom like a wound. She locked the screen. Why do you need this? She asked. Our castes are obedience. When nodes fail, function collapses. The voice thinned. 3 hives culled this cycle after cascade failure. Your records show resilience under leader attrition. We will acquire it. You're bleeding from what you built, Mara said. There is adaptation, Varith Ka said. Deliver, or this planet will instruct you. Mara remembered the first winter after landing, when the grid failed. People carried heat in ceramic bricks, shared water from radiation stills. She set her palms on the table. We can't give you what you're asking. Not the way you want it. Then provide a lesser scaffold. Ritual templates. Behavioral triggers. Stories with adhesive properties. We will prune outcomes until efficient. I can give you an explanation, she said. If your goal is stability, bombing farms is a poor start. Speak. Chosen kin arises when people face danger together, freely, and honor each other afterward. Remove freedom and it curdles. Remove the afterward and it breaks. Starving and isolating teach desperation. Desperation clings to anything that moves. That isn't loyalty. A distinction without performance value. It's the difference between a rope and algae. Claws tapped the table. Your council authorized exchange, Vayrith Ka said. Provide deliverables. Exchange implies reciprocity, Mara said. So far you've offered gun barrels and euphemisms. Reciprocity follows compliance. Then you don't know the word. A Marine muttered, careful. She didn't turn. Let me see the prisoners, she said. If you expect usable data, stop destabilizing them. Bring them somewhere open. Let them see each other as more than variables. I'll show your researchers how we scaffold trust. It won't hand you the gift, but it will save lives. Negotiation for mercy cloaked as consultation. Call it what you want. The ships burned in the hologram. You may observe under constraint. No transfer. Observation is a start, Mara said. We'll need our security. Denied. Then you'll get nothing you can use. A pause. One Marine, Vayrith Ka said. Unarmed. Done. And the initialization sequence. You'll get a framework. Not a recipe. Semantics. Limits. The star field widened to arcs of trajectory and heat. You will deliver within one cycle, Vayrith Ka said. Delay triggers corrective action. How long is a cycle? 20 of your hours. Mara stood. Chair legs whispered against stone. She looked at a gallery, pale faces, set jaws. Vayrith Ka's voice followed. Humans admire martyrdom. Do not make your planet into a stage. You misunderstand us again, she said. We admire the ones who come home. Outside, sunlight hit hard. The avenue smelled of iron and resin. Harbor cranes inched over skiffs. She walked until her hand steadied and called defense. How bad? She asked. Bad, the officer said. 9 cruisers, 2 carriers, and something we can't classify. High drift. Not locking yet. And the prisoners? Still off-world. Set up a channel for controlled observation, she said. 20 hours. You think they'll honor it? No, she said. But they'll pretend long enough for me to try. She ended the call and looked up. Alarms began to pulse. Orbital signatures had shifted. Above Asterion, the first carrier turned its face toward the world. The council chamber still smelled of ozone from the emergency lamps. Mara stood at the center, shoulders tight, staring at a circle of faces that wanted answers. Farmers in work boots, engineers with grease on their cuffs, a single Marine officer in pressed black. Behind them, the old stone walls hummed faintly with the colony's recycled air. Governor Sherry cut through the murmur. You told the overseer you'd give them a framework. Explain yourself. Mara kept her voice steady. I bought us 20 hours. If we give nothing, they torch farms to ash. If we give too much, they hollow us out. The line between is the only place we can stand. Frameworks don't stop plasma fire, said Lieutenant Dane, jaw set hard. They have 9 cruisers. You've seen the scans. Mara met his stare. And shooting at them gets us what? A crater. Survival means being useful without surrendering what defines us. An engineer spoke up, a wiry man named Haru. And if they decide usefulness is extraction? They already took our people. The room went still. Everyone knew the word prisoners, but Mara had been the first to say it aloud. She folded her arms. They don't understand how bonds work. They're trying to manufacture loyalty like wiring a circuit. That's why they need us. And that's why they'll keep talking, at least long enough to see if I can make their test subjects behave. Governor Sherry leaned forward. You mean hostages? Yes, Mara said. But if I can shape how they are treated, I might keep them alive. Silence. The hum of the air system filled the gap. Sherry's eyes softened. You believe you can teach them? Mara remembered the cold way Varith had said volitional alignment, as if love were a glitch. I can't teach them what they want. But I can keep them chasing shadows instead of burning us down. The governor sat back. Then do it. And pray shadows are enough. Later, Mara walked the narrow corridor toward the colony's con suite. The floor vibrated faintly, subsurface power conduits thrumming under load. She pressed her slate to the wall port and pulled up the overseer's data packet. Streams of neural graphs, cortisol spikes, heat maps of faces under duress. Prisoners tagged not with names but numbers. She scanned, throat tight. Subject 12, female, 30s, agricultural worker. Subject 27, child, 8. That made her stop. She set the slate down and pressed her palm against her eyes. The Dominion had no concept of innocence. To them, a small body was just another node in an experiment. She forced herself to keep reading. Patterns leapt out, bonds formed strongest when captives were allowed even the smallest ritual, a greeting, a shared ration, a glance at the stars. Strip those away, and the graphs dropped into chaos. She whispered to the empty corridor, it isn't chemicals. It's choices. Flashbacks came unbidden. Mara was 10, standing in a burnt-out hat dome on Luna 5 after a mining strike gone wrong. Her parents were gone. It was the neighbors, people with no reason to care, who carried her into warmth, who told her she was theirs now. That was the moment she understood, bloodlines could fail, but chosen bonds filled the gap. Without them she'd have been ash long before the academy. The overseer wanted the gift in a bottle. Mara clenched her fists. It could never be bottled, but it could be modeled, enough to keep her people breathing. By the time she returned to the chamber, the Marine officer was waiting. Governor says you're cleared for contact prep. One escort only. That'll be me. She studied him. Dane's uniform was spotless, his hair regulation short, but his eyes had lines carved deep. He'd lost people, that much was obvious. You volunteer, or get volunteered. Both, he said. Figure if the bugs want a Marine, better it be one who knows when not to pull a trigger. A dry smile escaped her. Then maybe we'll survive. The first link opened at dusk. Holographic feed snapped alive in the chamber, static coiling like mist. On the other side, a grey room with walls too smooth. 6 prisoners huddled, chained but alive. Faces pale, eyes darting. Guards loomed insect tall in the shadows. Varith's voice crackled. You may observe. Deliver protocols. Mara stepped forward. Protocols begin with recognition. Remove their hoods. A pause, then the guards obeyed. Light fell on weary human faces. A woman gasped at the sight of the others, and in that gasp Mara heard the first tremor of hope. Next, Mara said, steady, let them share a meal. Not rations, something hot, shared from one vessel. This is inefficiency, Varith replied. This is the start of stability, she countered. Watch. A guard shoved a steaming bowl toward the captives. They tore at it, hands trembling, but then the woman, subject 12, stopped, passed the ladle to the child. Mara's throat caught. The graphs on her slate spiked, red lines stabilizing into green arcs. She turned the screen to the overseer. That's kinship. It doesn't start with formulas. It starts with choice. When the feed cut, Dane exhaled. You think they bought it? They saw the numbers. That's all they care about. She looked down at her slate. Subject 27's vitals had steadied. For now. They'll keep pushing, Dane said. You know that. Yes? And so will we. Night fell heavy on Asterion Prime. From her quarters, Mara watched the faint glimmer of ships above, a halo of menace. Her comm buzzed with a message from Shuri, any progress? She typed back, some. They want scaffolds, not truths. That buys time. Her hand hovered before sending. She deleted the last sentence and left it at that. At dawn, another call. This time the overseer wanted details. Define ritual template, Varith Ka said. Replicable. Minimal variables. Mara chose her words like scalpels. Begin with greeting. Eye contact. Name exchange. Allow repetition. That repetition becomes trust. Eye contact. The alien hissed the phrase as though it were waste. Yes, Mara said. Without it, you'll never get cohesion. Recognition is the root. Strip it, and you get collapse. The overseer leaned close to the lens, multifaceted eyes glinting. We will attempt. If results fail, you will correct. You'll never get perfection, Mara said. Bonds aren't machines. They're stories. Stories degrade. Stories endure longer than fear, she said, and cut the line before he could answer. She leaned back, breath sharp in her lungs. Dane stood near the doorway. You realize, he said quietly, you're giving them just enough to keep trying. I know. And in the meantime, our people rot in their cages. I know that too. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Then we make sure they rot slow enough to come home. Mara almost smiled. That's the plan. Outside, the colony stirred awake, children running along walkways, farmers climbing into tractors, engineers patching drone rotors. Every face carried the weight of orbiting firepower, but they moved anyway. Choice in motion. Mara whispered to herself, almost a vow, they'll never own this. Not while we're alive. The first strike fell without warning. A plume of fire rose on the horizon where the colony's southern fields stretched toward the sea. Alarms followed, sharp pulses through every channel. Mara ran to the balcony outside the council chamber and saw smoke climbing into the pale sky. The overseer had kept his word, correction. Governor Sherry's voice crackled over the con grid. Contain fires. Evacuate outlying farms. Civil defense to shelters. The council erupted into noise, half shouts for retaliation, half pleading for negotiation. Mara kept her eyes on the smoke. Varith Ka had moved past threats. Now every minute bled credibility from her words. Lieutenant Dane appeared at her shoulder. We've got a dozen families out there. Marines are pulling them in, but we can't cover everything if they keep this up. They won't stop, Mara said, throat tight. They are proving how quickly they can break us. Dane looked grim. Then you'd better prove the opposite. That evening, the overseer called. His image filled the chamber, mandibles glistening. Compliance was partial. Correction applied. Deliver the complete scaffold. Mara forced steel into her tone. You burned crops. That's not correction, it's sabotage. You want stable bonds? Then you've destroyed your own test. Our models adjust. You will provide. Her slate vibrated. The governor's message, stall. Buy time for evacuations. Mara straightened. You misunderstand. You think loyalty can be trained with fire and scarcity. But the more you destroy, the less you'll ever get what you want. Bonds form in trust, not terror. The overseer's eyes narrowed. Demonstrate. Her mind leapt. A risk. Maybe the only one left. Then watch us. Witness what you're trying to copy. The plan took shape in hours. At the colony square, word spread of a gathering. Families left shelters cautiously, eyes flicking skyward. Smoke still hung in the air, but they came. Marines stood guard at the perimeter while techs rigged a live feed straight to the Dominion ships. Mara stood in the center of the square. Dane joined her, rifle slung but unused. Lanterns flickered in the growing dusk. Around them, people formed a wide circle, voices hushed. The overseer's hologram shimmered into being above the square, towering insectoid form watching with cold detachment. Mara raised her voice so all could hear. You want to know how we bind? How strangers become family? Then see it. She motioned to a woman carrying a bundle wrapped in cloth. The woman stepped forward, face drawn but steady, and knelt. She unwrapped the cloth. Inside lay a child's boots, scuffed and worn. "My son," she said, voice breaking. "Lost in the first landing storm. But the neighbors," she gestured to the couple beside her, "they carried me through. They became my blood." The couple stepped close, placing hands on her shoulders. The crowd murmured, not out of pity, but recognition. Another colonist came forward, this one an engineer with oil-stained hands. He held up a shard of fractured steel. "When the grid collapsed, I was ready to give up. But he nodded toward a farmer in the circle, "she made me eat, dragged me back to the station. I fixed it because she believed I could. Now she's my sister." One by one, colonists stepped into the circle. Each offered an object, a scarf, a broken tool, a faded photo, and told a story of how another had saved them, how trust had turned into kinship. No command had bound them. No reward promised. Only choice. Mara looked up at the overseer's projection. "This is what you're asking for. Not chemicals, not orders. This." She spread her hands to the circle. "Free will carving bonds out of loss and defiance." The hologram remained silent. Behind her, the murmurs rose into a chant, not words, but the sound of many voices, steady and low. It rolled across the square like a tide. People reached for each other, hands clasping, shoulders touching, a web of connection made visible. For a moment, even Mara felt the weight lift from her chest. For a moment, the fear faded. Then Vairith Ka spoke. "Inefficient. Ritual displays are noise. Yet, metrics rise." Dane stepped forward, voice hard. "You can measure all you want, but you'll never earn it. Not unless you become us." The overseer's mandibles twitched. "If replication fails, acquisition remains. We will take subjects en masse. Direct observation in controlled hive." The square stilled. Mara's blood ran cold. "You mean abduction?" "Yes. Extraction will yield true templates." The projection vanished. The council met again at dawn. Faces were gaunt, sleepless. Sherry's voice was hoarse. "They are preparing transports. Scouts confirm troop carriers above atmosphere." Mara clenched her fists. "We can't let them take people. Once they are gone, they'll never come back." "Then what?" Dane asked. "We fight? We've got drones and rifles. They've got orbit." Sherry's gaze slid to Mara. "You challenged them. They'll expect you to yield." Mara met the governor's eyes. "Yielding gives them our essence. Fighting gives them our bodies. Neither is survival. Then where's the third path?" Mara looked at her slate, at the graphs that had spiked during the ritual. A thought stirred. What if we make refusal itself the signal? Show them that the gift can't be forced, only given. If the entire colony refuses in unison, they'll have nothing to extract. "You're asking us to stand unarmed against carriers," Dane said. "I'm asking you to show them futility," Mara replied. "To prove that bonds can't be harvested like minerals. They'll waste cycles, lose soldiers, lose time. And maybe that makes them retreat." The chamber went silent. People glanced at each other, weighing the impossible. Finally, Sherry spoke. "If we do this, we do it together. No one breaks. Not one." Mara nodded. "That's the only way it works." That night, Mara walked the colony streets. Lanterns burned in windows despite ration orders. Families sat close together. Neighbors shared food across doorways. It was quiet, but not broken. Dane found her near the perimeter wall. "You think this bluff works?" "It has to," she said. He watched the sky where faint glimmers marked ships in orbit. "I've fought wars. You can kill soldiers, you can starve them, you can frighten them. But you can't make them choose something they don't believe." "That's the lesson," she said softly. If they can't grasp it, they'll never win. Above them, a carrier split atmosphere, streaking fire across the night. Sirens wailed. The invasion had begun. The first carrier's shadow slid across Asterion Prime like an eclipse. Sirens pulsed through the colony, a rhythm of dread. Mara stood in the council square, slate pressed cold in her hand, watching the vessel burn its descent path through the upper air. Governor Sherry's voice rang across the comm grid, all citizens to the square. Hold your ground. Do not scatter. People obeyed. They came from shelters and workshops, carrying nothing but themselves. Parents gripped children, engineers still in oil-stained uniforms, Marines stripped of rifles. They filled the square shoulder to shoulder until the avenues overflowed. No weapons. Only presence. Mara walked among them. Faces turned toward her, not for orders, but for confirmation. She gave them nods, brief words, stay close. Don't waver. We hold together. Above, the carrier slowed, venting flame. Dropships detached, black specks descending in arcs. Lieutenant Dane appeared at her side, jaw locked. They'll hit the ground in minutes. They'll find no one to take, Mara said. Unless someone panics. She looked across the crowd. Fear etched every face, yet no one moved. A hush spread, heavier than sirens. The colony had decided. The first dropship landed outside the square. Dust blasted into the air. Insectoid soldiers poured out, tall, armored, claws glinting. They advanced in formation, lines precise. Mara stepped forward to the front of the human crowd. Her voice cut the silence. We are already bound. There's nothing to seize. The overseer's projection shimmered into being above the square, massive against the sky. Mandibles spread wide, eyes fractal with cold light. You refuse extraction. Then extinction follows. Mara raised her chin. You've mistaken us from the start. This gift can't be stolen. It only exists because we give it freely. Strip it, and it vanishes. All you'll hold are bodies without the thing you want. The soldiers halted. Waiting. The overseer's voice rasped. Fear breaks resolve. Begin the culling. One soldier strode forward, weapon raised. Before panic could erupt, Dane stepped out. He dropped his rifle to the ground, raised both hands, and turned his back to the alien line. He faced the colonists instead. His voice rang clear, we stand as kin. No one moves. The crowd answered, not in words, but by locking arms. Neighbors linked shoulders, strangers clasped hands. Thousands fused into a living wall. The soldier hesitated, weapon wavering. See them, Mara called, voice sharp as steel. No command, no bribes, no chains. They choose each other. That is the mechanism you can never copy. The overseer's eyes flickered. Data streamed across its holographic mandibles. Metrics unstable. Cohesion exceeding modeled thresholds. You can measure forever, Mara said, but you'll never own it. The crowd began to chant, not rehearsed, not ordered. A low, steady beat, together. 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 The sound shook the square. Soldiers shifted uneasily. The overseer hissed. Inefficient noise. Proof, Mara said. Proof that your extraction is futile. Kill us, and you lose the experiment. Leave us, and you've learned your limit. The projection loomed silent for long seconds. Dropships idled, soldiers frozen. The chant continued, rising louder, vibrating through stone and air. At last, Varith Ka spoke. Cost exceeds yield. This trial is terminated. The soldiers withdrew. Dropships lifted, engines howling. The projection dissolved. Above, the carrier's shadow turned back toward the stars. Relief did not break immediately. The crowd held fast, locked in place, waiting for betrayal. Only when the last dropship vanished into the upper air did the grip loosen. Shoulders sagged. People sobbed, laughed, clung to each other. Dane bent to pick up his discarded rifle, then let it fall again. Never thought I'd see aliens outlogic themselves. Mara exhaled, legs trembling. It wasn't logic that beat them. He gave her a sideways look. Then what? She scanned the square, faces streaked with tears, hands still linked. This? Choice made visible. The one thing they can't replicate. Later, in the council chamber, Shuri addressed the colony. Her voice was raw but steady. We are scarred, but unbroken. The Overseer is gone, at least for now. They wanted to steal what makes us human. Instead, they showed us it cannot be taken. Applause rippled, not thunderous but grounded. Survivors acknowledging survival. Mara stood apart, leaning against the stone wall. Exhaustion seeped into her bones, but beneath it, a fierce calm. Dane approached quietly. You realize they'll be back. Different methods. Different demands. I know. And we'll be ready. She looked past him, through the high windows, at the stars where the Dominion ships had vanished. Ready isn't the word. We'll keep living. That's the answer they'll never compute. That night, Mara walked alone through the quiet streets. The fires were out, the smoke gone. Families huddled together in homes, whispering, grieving, laughing through tears. Lantern light spilled onto cobblestones, warm against the darkness. She stopped in the square where it had all held. The echoes of the chant still seemed to hum in the stone, together. She whispered into the silence, half prayer, half vow, we never shared it because it was never ours to sell. It was only ever ours to live. Above, the sky stretched vast and starlit. Somewhere in that darkness, the Overseer calculated, planned, searched for a formula that would never exist. And on Asterion Prime, humanity endured, scarred, defiant, bound not by command, but by choice.